All right. Another episode here for Chainlink Sports, and I have another agent here. However, this is my first female agent, so this is pretty cool to be talking with somebody kind of in a different sector of the sports representation industry. I have Lisette Carnet. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
You did,
Okay,
Carnet.
okay, perfect. So Lisette, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. I'm looking so forward to today. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
yeah, of course. So Lizette here, she is a MLB player agent. She represents Yasiel Puig. That's her biggest client, and she's also working with Rachel Luba of Luba Sports. She's really growing very fast in the sports agency industry, and she's also has Trevor Bauer along there. So pretty good connection to have there, and two really powerful female agents who are paving the way for others, as I imagine. So Lizette, what I want to know first is just how did you know that you wanted to become an agent, and just how did that whole process start for you?
For everyone it's different, but I think for me, I didn't really get here until I just started growing into some possibilities for me. I started off I met Yasiel at a charity event years ago. And it was for children with special needs. He was there as a guest speaker, and I was there actually with my daughter who was doing a documentary on children with special needs. So when I met him, I actually served for my daughter to help translate. And we speak the same dialect. My family is Cuban. I'm first generation American in my family. So it was easy to speak to him. And that's really how our friendship started. Um, I had some ideas on, how he could grow his foundation. He had just started a foundation a few months before, and he was really wanting to get it off, and running. And we discussed a couple of times. I went to spring training back then. He was still with the Dodgers, and we met about, really, directing his foundation and running it. And it took about a year. I volunteered for Yasiel for about a year, helping his foundation grow, obviously, because foundations, when they start, they don't really have, enough of a base.
Right.
And then he saw how I worked and he liked it. And then he offered me a job at the end of that year. And obviously it was as director of his foundation. It went really well from there. I mean, I just started, it was something that was off the beaten track for me. I didn't have that in my background. I didn't even really, I have a son who plays baseball, but I'm the heel mom. I wear heels to the stadium, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not, definitely that kind of mom.
Right.
So I was always the one, the outcast. And, when my son was playing games, I was always in the corner. I was like, not fitting in. And it was really funny because baseball kind of annoyed me. It was long, and what's going on here? And it was that kind of thing. So it was funny because it wasn't like when I met Yasiel, I wasn't really starstruck. And I think that was one of the biggest things that he realized. I saw him for who he was, and I'm more than anything connected with him because of our culture,
Right.
and I
Right.
understood that. And so I think that was one of the biggest things, that I wasn't like, head over heels, like, wow, here's Yasiel Puig from the Los Angeles Dodgers. It wasn't really my thing. So I just did my work, and I put my head down and did what I needed to do. So that's how that started. It was really through the foundation. Then our friendship started developing, because at the end of the day, he had, a lot of people around him that really wished the best for him, but they didn't really understand who he was. He was super misunderstood. I started realizing this guy
Yeah.
has an amazing heart. I mean, when he talks to me, when we first talked about what he wanted for the foundation, I think it was the first time that he ever confessed to anybody that he didn't have a glove until he was 16. Anybody here in the United States anyway. And he, I started asking him. I'm a mom of four. I have four kids. One of my kids is actually older than Yasiel. So I just started asking him the way I would talk to any of my kids. I
Right.
started asking him, what are your dreams? What are your goals? What do you want to do? I don't think anybody had really sat down and talked to him about those things. So it just started becoming really a matter of developing, a deep-seated friendship, based on his desires in life. And so that's how that started. And I started getting to know the man, and then I started putting it out there, like, listen, this is who he really is. Why doesn't he hit the cutoff guy? Well, because when he was in Cuba, he didn't, not all of his teammates had gloves, and so he many times had to hit over or throw the ball over the cutoff guy so that the cutoff guy wouldn't get hurt. So that's where his arms started getting really good. I mean, those are the
Right.
stories that
Right.
I got out of him, and he wouldn't tell anybody here, and he would just get in trouble. And because he comes from a country where you can't speak out, he would stay quiet. And that was it made it more impossible to get to know who Yasiel Puig is. And so I really found myself through his foundation and through the work that he was doing and through his huge heart, I really found myself being able to support him in a way where others couldn't and didn't know how, because I really understood him.
Right,
So that's how that started. And so the agency really happened because, you know, little by little, I started helping him with his brands. I got promoted last year to run his global brand. So I started dealing with him with his brands, his off the field marketing, his off the field business. I started running that. And then, you know, I realized, and he realized at one point, gee, you know, you know me better than anyone, you know, what do you suggest that I do? And I started back then, I was very uncomfortable because I saw that there was a real big disconnect with the way that agents do business in baseball and in the MLB in particular. And the disconnect is, you know, they have all of these players and you can't really hone down and really get to know a player. So Yasiel Puig, who was such an enigma, if somebody didn't take the time to really get to know him and understand him, because you can try and get to know a person, but if you have cultural differences, that becomes a problem, right? And a basic problem.
And honestly, like where he came from, like how you mentioned, where speaking out was kind of frowned upon, or you might, you know, be looked down upon. So like you're absolutely right with that, because like in his scenario, it's almost like a really special case in that sense.
There's so many special cases like that. There's so many Latinos and, you know, Cuban players for sure, but that are misrepresented in that way because they don't, a lot of the culture here doesn't understand where it is that they're coming from. Why they play the way that they play. Why does Yasiel, you know, flip the bat? Why does he lick the bat? Why does he do the things that he does?
I was gonna say lick the bat too.
Yeah. Why does he do the things that he does? And he's so reprimanded for it. I mean, he really is the veteran of you know, let the kids play, right? He really is that poster child, and he loves to play baseball. And I think that that's why the fans really interact with Yasiel in this way, where they just thoroughly love him because he plays the way that they feel about baseball. And so a lot of that disconnect happens with Yasiel because he's not, you know, he thought he wasn't allowed to say, well, this is the way, you know, I play baseball because of this. He didn't understand a lot. There's a lot of difference too. Here, the players, the American players, they get from the time that they're small. I mean, my son, from the time that he was super young, we were already teaching him, look, there's 6 tools to baseball. The 6 tools is your character. This is what counts. You know, you sort of start creating and farming these children, right, to be able to play baseball. That's why the farm system exists. And they're used to the baseball culture. They're used to the rules. And then you bring a player like Yasiel Puig, who was not, I mean, who played on the streets, who was not trained to play professional baseball here, who was not raised in any way to play professional baseball here, who was arrested 13 times to be able to come to this country, who had a very difficult time to come here to begin with, when he did finally make it to Mexico, and that was a whole other ordeal. Then you sort of drop him in and you expect him to just pick up the rules like that. It's impossible. So I think that there's a lot of things that need to be changed. And I think that being a woman, and that's one of the reasons that I was looking at Rachel when I started looking at her in the beginning of the year, and to see the things that she was doing. I think being a woman really helps in the fact that it's sort of like you have this instinct to understand. You have this instinct to sort of make things work out, to see the best way, the best scenario in certain situations. That just is an innate part of being a woman. And I think that for players like these Latin players, I think that that's something that's super important. Most of them, by the way, were raised by really powerful women, their moms, who most of the time were single moms, and were doing a really good job at training these boys and raising these boys. So they understand the familiarity of dealing with a strong woman, and they
probably gravitate towards it too. They probably gravitate towards it as well.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that it's a no nonsense type of thing. Yasiel and I, our relationship is that where, he sees me coming sometimes and he runs the other direction. I won't lie. Because he knows that, it's like a mama bear attitude. It's like, if he's done something wrong, I'm going to be going there. I'm going to be yanking his ear. Or if he, or when you praise him, when he does something absolutely right, that he's not ready to be praised, or he hasn't been praised in the past. So it's that kind of relationship, and it's the retraining, and it's guiding, really, a player that comes from a different culture, and guiding him here. And I think that's why, when I saw what Rachel was doing with Trevor, and I saw this youth, and this new, because Trevor Bauer is, I think he's an anomaly, just like Yasiel. He's amazingly bright, super smart. I think every team in America needs to be looking at Trevor Bauer, because this guy just really looks at something and he's going to go get it. He's going to go after it, whatever it is that he wants, whatever it is that he sees himself wanting to do.
Yeah,
so I saw that. Yeah,
he's very tenacious as well. Just like through the content that I see him and hear, like the way he speaks and all that. He's like a no bullshit kind of guy, and he goes and gets what he wants.
That's right. He goes it. He sees it. He makes sure that he puts himself in the best possible position to make himself be the winner of whatever it is that he's set out for himself. So I saw that in Trevor, and I said, wow, this is a really great person for Yasiel to look up to see, to speak to have somebody, on his side that he can emulate. These are things that I was looking for. And then I saw Rachel, who is really young, but knows her stuff. I mean, this girl worked for the MLBPA. She did her time with the MLBPA. She knows, she's done, I don't even know, I think over 25 arbitrations. I mean, if you look at Scott Boras, I don't know how many, I think it's like 10, 13. I don't know how many does he list. Most of other agents have been a lot less than that. Rachel has done 25 because of her, even though she's young, because of her youth, that didn't stop her from doing her job at the MLBPA, and she did a wonderful job. So that I looked at, I said, this girl has a lot of experience in the things that we need experience, and she knows she knows the world of baseball, and you have to respect that. And aside from that, just her entire core is about changing the way that things are, insofar as she gets it. She gets, she gets players, she gets, what they need and how to translate that into the teams. And I love that. And it's not to say that there aren't other women. There are several other women who've come before us and who've done this, and obviously without them we wouldn't be here. But at the same time, I wanted something different. I didn't want the agent that had to sort of, go back to being or working the way other agents do in the MLB. I didn't want that. I wanted the agent that disrupts. I mean, we are right. I wanted to just something different, and I think the MLB really is behind in a lot of other different sports, and so far as where we're at and how we are relating to the new generations. And I really wanted to be a part of that. I mean, I think I was just asked by a female friend of mine, what led you to this? Why the MLB? And it really wasn't because it was the MLB. It was because I saw, in my character, I see something that has not been done. I see something that I'm not allowed to do, and I tend to want to do that. I gravitate towards that. And so it doesn't really bother me that I'm in a room with, half dozen men. And it doesn't intimidate me. And so I think that's where we're at with Rachel, and that's why I love her. I think she's brilliant at what she's doing.
Absolutely. And so to kind of backtrack a little bit, because you did cover a lot there, and that's exactly, you do have like an incredible story about how, the way you've kind of moved your way up in this industry. But back when you were talking about when you first met Yasiel, I think it's kind of interesting how you kind of treat him more like on a human level, instead of like, the superstar MOB or like the Cuban phenom that, everyone saw him as. Maybe when these like big money agents would walk in and maybe treat him differently as, someone like you who just kind of approach him as like, at like face value, at like just the human being that he is. So do you feel like that's an approach where other people should take? Because, because I feel like a lot of agents out there and people who want to represent players, they treat them just as objects. You know what I mean? Like they see them as a paycheck. They see them, as a way, for them to add to their clientele. Because I think that the way you approached it, I mean, it was kind of like on accident. I think that's just like your nature, just by talking to you for this short while. But like, do you feel like that's like an approach that should be used more often?
I think and in my experience with other players that I've met, obviously, throughout this time being with the SCL, I think that they all need that. They want to have somebody on their side that knows their business. I know that, my background is in investments. My background is in, making sure, like, when there's a window in baseball, right? 7, 10 years, 12 years. What do you do after that? You sort of have to prepare the player. You need to make sure that you care enough about the player to know that it's not just this window, it's not just during this time. You're
Yeah.
making a commitment to that player to make sure that, hey, I'm on your side. I'm going to be on your side, whether it's this, little marketing deal, or whether it's this, big contract, or whether it's after you retire. I'm on your side, and this is who you get. And I think that is, of course, you have to be, see the human side of the player, and you have to relate to that. But there's a difference between seeing the human side and becoming friends. Like, a lot of agents make the mistakes of oh, they go and they, like, maybe they go to, restaurants, or they go to parties, or they go to clubs, and they think that this is the way to schmooze kind of like the player. That is not necessary. The player needs somebody on his team to make sure that you have the best interest of the player. And not necessarily does it mean that, you have to go out partying with them, or you have to go, hang out, or you have to become their best friend. Not necessarily
Right.
that. You just have to have their best interest. And by way, obviously, I think that any, especially any female agent will tell you, you just become family with the players no matter what. Because you're interested, you have an interest in what they do, you have an interest in what they say, and you're so melded with their life that eventually you become more of a family member. So that is absolutely super important. But then again, going back, that's why it's so very important for Latino players and players that are, from different cultures, to have somebody on their side that understand them and that know where they're coming from, so that there's no misunderstanding in communication.
Absolutely. And you keep on bringing up like the female agent side of it. So what challenges have you faced over your time, just because the industry is a very male dominated industry, and the
Right.
sport is played by all men. Like there's never been a woman in the MLB before. So like what challenges have you faced there that you can maybe give advice to other young women trying to break into your field?
Honestly, I haven't really I mean, insofar, you might think that it's, because it's a male dominated industry, I would have more difficulty with males. Absolutely not. I've actually had more difficulty with the females trying to climb up. I think that the
Right.
females, I've had more, whether it's gossip, whether it's, saying, things to stop you from climbing. No, it's like a different kind of competition.
Right.
And that's
Well,
what's
I mean, like the industry across the board is very cutthroat. You know, what I mean, like
yeah.
regardless of what I mean. So I think that's just kind of the culture of it.
I think it's a culture. I think, though, too, it depends on your personality. I was raised, my background, my family is Cuban, raised by a bunch of Cuban men, in the 60s and 70s, Las Vegas guys, the ones that gamble, the ones that, so I was
Yeah.
raised in that environment. I really know how to hold my own in a group setting of men.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that that's super important to know that, you value your intellect, and you know what you're doing. And if you know what you're doing, you're going to excel in whatever area you're with, and whoever you surround yourself with. So even though, like I said, I think that, yes, of course, everyone goes through in every area. MLB absolutely is one of the one of the sectors that absolutely makes it more difficult, I guess, if that's the term that I want to use for women. Because, obviously we're not allowed in the clubhouse, or certain things that we're not able to do here in the Dominican. Actually, I have a friend of mine who works at the Dominican, who's in charge of baseball ops, and she gets to walk around the clubhouse, and there's no big deal there. I've
Right.
given birth to a male.
Right.
So, it should be okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that this country still has to, like, uh,
Adapt to.
adapt to. So, but absolutely, I think that if you know your stuff, and you are good at what you do, I think that you make your own way. And as long as you don't pay attention to a lot of the noise, all that is noise. Whether it
Right.
comes from males, whether it comes from females, it's just noise. You have to know what you're focused on. You have to just move forward. That's
Right.
what you have to focus on.
Right. Right. And I know you mentioned Rachel before, but like, what has it been like, kind of watching her grow her agency over the past year? Because she's an agent, but she also runs like an entire agency with, other clients. So, I know Trevor was at the forefront for a while now. Yasiel is the next big name in there, but what's been like kind of watching her, like pave, like really pave her way in the industry and like grow her business.
There are a lot of I watch everything that Rachel does. And again, I have daughters that are older than Rachel. I love everything that she's doing. She's super open. She's incredibly bright. Um, she's communicative. She has that same instinct that I do as a female to be able to understand the player. So players feel that she's taking care of her business. They feel, you have to understand, we're talking, Trevor Bauer and Yasiel Puig. These are really major clients that have, that would probably scare any agent. They
Right,
would,
right.
they're not easy.
Yeah,
In a lot of ways to be able to handle, because they're open and they have their own mindset, and they have their own personalities. So to have them look at us and to have them look at Rachel and to say, I trust you with my career, that is a big
right.
deal.
Yeah,
And there's something about that that people really have to start opening their eyes to, because you know, here comes Rachel, who has, she's an attorney. She started her own agency. She's in Forbes, under 30, right? She's
yeah.
just an amazing representation of a female agent. I think that watching her, I'm just amazed. I love everything that she does, everything that she's doing for her own brand, everything she's doing for Trevor's brand, what she's doing for Yasiel's brand. She gets it, and she gets this new way that the MLB is going to be going towards. The social media, everything is the fans. A lot more input from the fans. She gets it, and I see that, and I applaud her. I'm one of her biggest fans, and
Right,
that's
right.
when we were going through this, when I talked to Yasiel, I said, hey, there's a girl that's doing things a little bit differently, and I want you to take a look at her.
Right.
And that's how Rachel came into the picture.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
Gotcha.
that's what
So
happened.
nice, nice. I love it.
Yeah.
So, last question I have for you is, what advice would you give to any young person or a young female that are trying to break into your industry? Just like maybe some trials and tribulations that you went through, and just any general advice that you would give.
Gosh, anything, and this is for males and females, anything that you go through in life, whether it's, that it just gut wrenching obstacles, anything, that really puts you down, things that you have to fight against, days that you might have that, are full of tears, or just really big challenges. Those are the things that are really making you who you are. You're going to turn those things into opportunities someday in the future. Don't ever look at those things like, oh my God, this is super unlucky. This is horrible. This is teaching me that I can't go this route. No, if you have something that you're passionate about, just go for it. You don't have to worry about everything being perfect. Not everything's going to be perfect, and not everything's going to be on your time. I became an agent at 53 years old. So I had no idea I was going to be this when, I was in my 20s and 30s. I had no idea that this is where I was going to end up. I've
Right.
never had more fun, and I've never felt like I'm supposed to be where I'm at than now in my life. And so it doesn't really matter how you get there, how many difficulties you go through, all those obstacles, all those rocks in the way, all the difficulties. That's there for a reason. It's there to sort of polish, the rock that's going to become the diamond you. So basically, just embrace all of it, everything, the good and the bad, and you'll get there.
Awesome. I love it. So, thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy, but it was really awesome talking to you. This is really cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Continue to do what you do.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm gonna
Bye
cut
bye.
right here just so I know for myself.